Hello there, and welcome to a Saturday afternoon, in my case, coding session. Usually, I guess it's the first day that I stream on Saturday, and the reason is, well, it's a lazy Saturday for me, and I really want to finish up this security thing. And yesterday, actually, we finished the live stream while having a problem where we have set up everything that we need, but we still did get some errors when we were trying to actually make a request to an endpoint that was actually authorized. And yeah, I guess it's not very clever to really do live streams at the end of the days when one would be probably tired. Because the problem was actually, and the cool thing is that right after the stream, I went, well, to have a smoke, and then I had this idea. Okay, I have everything set up in the services, but did I have everything set up in the middleware pipeline? So I went right afterwards to check, and of course, this part here was totally missing. So that's why we were getting the error. And I'm not sure why, when I have used authorization, why I didn't also add authentication, because I usually add them together, because you usually use them together. So that's kind of like what happened yesterday, and yeah, in the end the problem was very easy to solve. And by the time I committed the changes to the repository for yesterday's live stream, I also have added this one. So right now the repository on GitHub should have a runnable project and should have authorization actually working. And for now we have actually not here, I guess. Where do we have the controller? User profile controller. So this controller we have actually decorated with this authorize attribute, and this would mean that actually here everything would be authorized when we make a call. So the token would be validated, and that actually works right now after making that very simple change. So yeah, but unfortunately I really can't stream well on another schedule because, well, I have to work. So and after work, yeah, like everybody, we might have also other maybe household duties or things like that. So I get to code then in the evening on this project. But before we actually get started here, let me check the repository here, what happened. I guess we still have the same 3 issues. The one is in progress. Okay, so here didn't happen too much. And all the existing pull request, which is still a draft. I think that Vlad did do some other commits here, but that's still not ready. Let's just look a little bit into that. Okay. But yeah, it will probably have a lot of warnings. So I guess at a certain point we will need to disable somehow these null checks. This is basically coming from the C#10 with nullable reference types. So yeah, what are we doing here? Update comment text. So yeah, that's the comment. That's quite a nice work, I guess. That's an endpoint for the controller. Here, I'm not sure why this actually is removed here. Command handlers. Yeah, but I guess probably I'll actually pull this when the work is done, and I will also review this in Rider directly. That would probably make a little bit more sense. That's yeah, the handle method. That's the handler that does the post comment. Okay, it seems okay here. Yeah, kind of that's nice work, but there are still a lot of things. Do we have maybe changes on the models? Because in that case we will also need to have a migration for that. But yeah, it's pretty much work in progress, and this is not work done by me. And if you're looking for the first time at this stream, I really have this at heart very much. I really want to make this to be a community project, so I'm coding on that. But I really hope that other people would also join, because I guess for most of you who are watching, that would also be a good learning opportunity for me, it is also a good learning opportunity because I get to also work with some stuff that probably I really don't work every day. Like for instance, I guess we will introduce pipeline behaviors from Mediator pretty soon to actually handle all cross-cutting concerns, and I actually never use them in projects. So the idea is that right now there is one other fellow here that kind of like did a contribution, and I am grateful to that. But the idea is that anybody that wants to contribute to this, basically we will open here issues, but you might open issues here yourself. If you see that there's something that needs to be done there, just open an issue, let's have a look at that, and you can then fork this repository and start working on that. And as you can see here from these labels, this issue is in progress, but the other two issues are actually still there. So you can just take one to work on, and yeah, that will actually be great. Also, as said, if you just want to open a new issue, this issue was actually opened by somebody else. It was not opened by me. Just please feel free to actually do that. And I guess that would be it for this part. Okay. So now that I have this actually working, I guess there's one more thing that I need to do. I guess I'll also open Visual Studio because I use the SQL Server Object Explorer from Visual Studio. Because what I want to do here, I just want to delete the user profile and the identity user that I have creating during the registration process, because I would like to actually start doing that from scratch. So I'll do this via the SQL Server Object Explorer, but for most other tasks I actually use Rider right now. Okay, so let's just wait a second. Dear Visual Studio, I don't think you want me to give a feedback seeing that I switched from Visual Studio to Rider. So yeah, that might not be a good idea actually. Let me, I guess it was here in this one that it's still so slow. It's still loading a lot of stuff. So, okay, and databases and CWK social, that would be our database, tables. And here, I probably need to also get SQL Server Management Studio installed in this computer, but I don't have it so far. So one thing that we want to delete is the user profile that we have right now. Where is view data here? Okay, so I guess I have deleted them yesterday evening. Could be. Let's also check the users, which is the identity user part. View data, and yeah, we don't have data. Okay, so I guess I deleted it also last evening, which is actually good. Okay, so let us then maybe go a step further. So right now in our identity controller, we have this kind of like method to register user. And that's actually the process where we actually want to, so we don't have any user in the database and no user profile. So this one will actually create an identity user in the database and also a user profile. And that's why we get here in this user registration all the information that we need for both of those objects. Right now, once again, if you didn't look at, I don't know, yesterday's live stream, if we take a look in our command handler for this one, which is register, it's very ugly. So we would have to refactor this a lot, because what we have here in this handle method, we have a lot of things going on. And yeah, so first of all, we verify if the user already exists in the database, because if it exists, then clearly that user does not need to register anymore. So that's why if user exists, we are just returning an error here. And if the user doesn't exist, then we create the identity user and we use a transaction here, because there are actually two operations that we want to perform here in the database, and we want to make sure that they go together actually. So we want to make sure that first the identity user is created successfully, and then also that user profile is created successfully. So if any of them actually fails, then none of the changes should be persisted in the database. And that's why we actually wrap everything here in this transaction. And here, for instance, if we have an error while we create the identity, we roll back the transaction. And kind of like we do exactly the same thing when we want to create a profile and save it to the database. And we have here a nested try catch for that. So if this fails, then we just roll back the transaction and throw the exception. Further, because we have this, well, let's say globally for this handler catch block, which will catch the exception. So either if it's a profile validation exception, or maybe if it's another exception thrown by entity framework core, it would actually still get there. And yeah, by the time we reach this, we are sure that we have rolled back our transactions. So the only thing that we do here is we just generate the error that we want actually to put in the result here, and then of course we return the result. So yeah, and we are doing a lot of stuff. Then after we create users, then we do the whole identity part, and basically we will have to probably refactor this, because what we need to do is actually we will need probably to create this, or to get this in an identity service, because at least there are some things here that we might actually need to well, expose to be accessible for both the registration and the login process. Like for instance, this part of creating the token itself. But then we might also need the token handler. So yeah, that's why I guess, and maybe the token descriptor, we would actually, that might be maybe a property. I don't know. So but I guess we would have to refactor this somehow, because we will need to perform similar stuff also when we do the login. And I guess we actually want to create the setup for the login. So we'll start, I guess, from the API contracts in this case. So the result would be exactly the same. So we will just return this property token that will contain the JWT token. Now the user registration, okay, we already have this login. So here we just have this username and we have this password. So we are okay with that. And this should be in form of an email address. So I guess we are cool with that. So this part is already there. But I guess then we will have to think, let's go to the controller and set up the controller for that. So what we would have here, public async task of iAction result, of course, not iAction filter, but iAction result, pretty much, please. Okay, and that would be called login. Cool. Now let's add the attributes that we need here. So first of all, that would be an HTTP post. Okay. Then second of all, we would need a route. And do we have a route here? I don't know. Let's see. Login. Yes, we have the route, which is login. Okay. So that's cool. So let's add a route. API routes.identity.login, and we will also need to validate the model. Remember, this validate model is our custom action filter attribute. That's something that we have created actually for this cross-cutting concern of validating the model, so that we don't have to check in the controller action if the model state is valid. So we know that if the execution arrives here, that basically means that the validation is also valid, or that the model is valid. So it's okay. Action filters are actually very cool, I guess, in ASP.NET Core. They really allow you to extract a lot of cross-cutting concerns from the controller actions into those filters, so that you don't have to repeat yourself. So that's actually very, very, very nice and powerful. Okay, so in this login, what we would have here, I guess we'll have, how did we call it? Login? Yes, I guess it's this login. So that's what we actually get from the body. Okay. Let's for now to just not have an error, return an okay. So that would be it. So right now what we would need for that is actually a command to have. Okay, so let's go to our application layer here. Okay, so here we have this register user identity. Let's add a new comment here. Do not get confused in this case, since it's a very short name, I will also use this login command suffix. So this would be an I request, and it will return okay. So it will return an operation result of string, just like the other one. And here we'll have two properties we will need here: public string username and public string password. Okay, so that would be our comment. And maybe we also need to go a little bit into the mapping profiles, I guess. But those should be the mapping profiles. Where do we have them? Mapping profiles, identity mappings. Okay. And here we have to create a map, actually. Okay, we have to create a map from login to login command. And I guess since the properties are named the same, I guess we don't username and password is okay. And login command, username and password, which is also okay. Oh, cool. So right now, I guess from this point of view, the mapping should be okay. And why we actually do this mapping? Because it's actually easy to map actually from our body that we get from the JSON. Could you show validate model attribute? Sure, Diego. And by the way, thank you very much for watching. I know you were there yesterday when we had that problem. Were you here from the beginning where I explained what the problem actually was? So mapper.map, we want to map to a login command, and we want to map the model that we have. So we have the command right now. Now var result equals mediator.send, and we want to send the command. Okay. Right now we don't have the handler yet, but I just want to set up here the controller, and then we will go to the handler. So Diego, you were here at the beginning of the stream when I explained what actually the problem was yesterday. I was so frustrated. Okay, no. I guess you were very close. Let me just show that. So yesterday you suggested that we should check if we have registered all the services, and I said, yeah, we have registered all the services, and it was actually true. But what the problem was actually, let me just show you, is that this line was missing. So we have added actually all the services, but when I have set up this middleware here, I kind of like, I don't know why I forgot to actually add also use authentication. And that's very weird, because usually when I add those together. So that was very strange. So right after the stream, I was going to smoke, and I was thinking, okay, I did all the services, but do I have all the middleware for that? And I went back to check, and of course this line was missing. So when I committed all the changes to the repository, actually I committed already the working version of that. So yeah, probably I shouldn't actually code or live stream at the end of the day. But as said, well, I have to work, I have other things to do, so that's usually when I get to actually code a little bit here for this side project and also do the live stream. So I guess these things might happen in that case. Okay, but you also wanted to take a look into that filter attribute. So here we have actually two attributes. One is here for the model validation, and the idea is that we have this on result executing. And here it means that when the result will be executed, what we will do actually, we actually want to on result executing means actually when exactly that controller method is invoked, and it actually will generate a result, which in our case is an iAction result. And here we do this check if model state is valid, and if it is not valid, then we generate our own error, which is part of our API contract. And yeah, we just set that as a bad request and as a result on the context, which automatically will mean that it will already return this response. Which means that if the model state is not valid, actually our controller methods will not be executed at all, which is, I guess, very, very nice. And we have this other attribute, which is the validate GUID attribute. And this attribute is actually needed because what happens is that on a lot of our routes, we are actually having IDs in the routing params, and those IDs are in form of GUIDs, or well, they are strings, but should be actually be parsable to GUIDs. So we have, sorry, so the controller actions that actually also work with this type of IDs, we also decorate with this validate GUID attribute. And here we use this onAction executing method to actually wire us up in this request pipeline. And we actually try to parse the GUID that we specify also. When we use this attribute, we have to specify a string that actually would indicate in which routing param should we actually look into. So we try to find that param and parse it to a GUID. And if it's everything's okay, then we just return. It means that it's everything okay, so we don't have to do anything else. But if it's not okay, then once again we generate our own result here, which is this error response, which once again is part of our API contract. And I guess we have this exception handler attribute, which is exception filter attribute. And right now we are actually just creating well, a certain type of error here, and we add the result. But we will see that probably at a certain point we might come here and further develop this, maybe returning different responses depending on the errors that we actually have. Because here in the errors, and that's why we have added that, we have this is a list of error, that's a list of strings, so I guess it's not there. But I guess on the result that we are returning from our handlers, we also have a code, and based on the code in this exception filter, we might be able to actually, I don't know, return different type of responses or bodies here depending on the codes that we have. So yeah, right now it's just returning an internal server error, but that's like a catch-all thing here. So if something generates an exception that was not caught anywhere else, then this filter will catch it and will generate once again our custom error response to that. Our API will always return our custom error response, which is part of our API contract. Okay, so guess let's go back to our identity controller. So what we do here, once again, if result is error, so if not cancelled but is, what's the problem with this? Okay, we have to await. Of course we have to await this. So if the result is error, then what this handle error response is actually a method on our API based controller, and we will specify here the result and the errors that we have. So we get a list of errors, but if not, then what we can do actually is once again var authentication result equals new authentication result, and I guess we can use here this object initializer, and we'll set token be result.payload, because this command will return a string, so that would actually be sufficient. Cool. And by the way, everyone who's watching, please feel free to just say hi in the chat, and let me know where are you watching from. That would be very, very nice, and I would appreciate that a lot to better understand where actually my community is. And if it's your first time here on the stream, then I'll go first myself. I'm streaming from Romania, from Timișoara. So yeah, it's, I guess, afternoon right now. Very nice hour to actually code, not being too tired. But yeah, please feel free to just say a hi there. And if you want to support this this stream and this channel, there are several ways that you can do that. And first of all, of course, and the most important one is just subscribe to the channel and make sure that you hit also the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we have some new content here. So that would be appreciated. You can go even the extra mile and maybe share this channel, I don't know, on some social media, on forums, or wherever you think there might be people that would find this content interesting. And last but not least, if you want to support, you also have just below the chat box that super thanks button, and you can use it to just say thank you, or well, use a custom sticker that we have there, and that would also be highly appreciated. Okay, now let's get back to our work. So I guess we are right now pretty much done with what the controller should do, so we can actually go on and create our handler. Okay, so handlers, and that would be login command handler. So that would be an I request handler, and the command is login command. So that is the one that we actually want to handle here. Let me add the necessary things here, and we return from here an operation result sorry, that's generic one, and once again we'll just return a string because we'll just return that token as a string. And of course we can then now implement the missing interface members. First of all, let's make sure that this is async, and here we actually need already to think about what we would need to inject in this handler. So private read only, of course we will need the data context. Let me add also the missing usings here. Okay, we will need also the user manager, which is a service provided by Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity. So read-only user manager. How did we add it here? Is user manager of identity user? I guess. Yes, it's of identity user. So we have to specify the generic version of it. So identity user. Okay. Okay, what else we'll need? I guess we will need the JWT settings. So we have used the options pattern for that. So we just need here the object private. Okay, JWT settings. Okay, so now we need a controller in which we inject all the stuff that we need. Okay, so first of all, we will need the data context. We'll need the user manager of identity user. Where is it? Here. And we will need an I guess I'll go on a different line here. I options of JWT settings. Options, and we're using the what is called in ASP.NET Core the options pattern, which is a pattern that's most commonly used to actually map configuration information that you have in your app settings.json file to some POCO objects or CLR objects in this case. And of course we need to actually assign here everything. So this one is actually this one, and user manager equals user manager, and the only thing is here that JWT settings would be equal to options.value. And right now we have everything that we need. Okay, so in what we actually need to do here in this login is, first of all, that's very similar to this register. Of course, we will need the result first. So yeah, let's do the following. So not try var result equals new operation result of string, because that's what we actually want to return. And then let's have a try catch. Okay, and I guess for the catch right now, so right now we just want to log in. So this means that we actually don't need to perform anything on the user profile. So it's just checking with user manager if that user is already there, which means that actually this kind of, I guess this var existing identity, that's something that that we still need, because we have to validate if the identity exists. The only difference is that right now we'll do exactly the other way around. So if the identity equals null, then you cannot log in because you don't have the identity user for that. So the only thing is, and of course we will have to change this message here. Username or password, or wrong username or password. Cannot log in, or login failed. Okay, so we add this error in this case, and then we just return the result with the is error flag that's set to true right now. So we should actually be okay with that. Let's also here return result. Okay. Let's maybe just also copy over what we do here in the exception. And I guess this is only the only one that we want to implement, because once again, right now we are not doing anything with user profiles, so we don't validate user profiles. So we won't get a user profile validation error, which is by the way a custom domain error from us. So we just have to implement this type of catch here. We don't want to throw. We just want to generate our error payload and set it to the result, so we then can return the result. Cool. So we are okay with that right now. Okay, so we validate if the existing user is null, then we just throw an error. Okay. Now, if the user is not null, it means that we can actually continue with what we want to do. And what we want to do here is I guess here, I guess we might to change it a little bit, because I'm sure that user manager, and let's maybe here see a little bit. User manager, I guess it needs to create async delete, normalize email, normalize update, access failed async, add claim async, add claim. This is when we want, if we want to add claims to the database, but for now we actually don't really want to do that. Change email, change password, check password, confirm email, get claims. I guess we should have something like a login. Get login async returns the associated login for the specified. Okay, I guess that should be the method. Or get user ID, get username, has password, register. Okay, removing claims, replace, reset, add to roles, this type of things when we will have role. Find by email async, find by ID async, find by login async. So what's this method all about? Which user associated with a specified external login provider. Okay, no, so that's for external login providers. We don't have something like that. Now get authentication token, that's something else. We don't have implemented this for now. Get user ID, get username. I guess we are already at the same. So what was the one that I guess we wanted? Get authentication. Okay, get authenticator key. No. Get security stamp. Get user ID. Get username. Is email confirmed? I'm looking here for a method. Find by email async. Okay. Yeah. The only thing is, let's look into gets user if any associated with the normalized value of the specified email address. Okay, notice recommended that identity options user require unique email to be set. Okay, the email address to return. But you know what? The problem here is that I actually want to actually log in the user to make sure that also the password is correct. There should be something here on that. Maybe on users. Let's see what we have here. No. Aggregator. These are the extensions that we have on the collection, so that doesn't really help here. Login count. Now that doesn't really help, I guess. First, yeah, these are all collection things. So on users, not. Oh, there should be something here. Key normalizer, password hasher. Okay, password validators. User validators. Okay. The iUser validator. Okay, so that is the validator of the user. Doesn't really help us. User role. Check password async. Is there a method check password async? Yeah, it is. That's the. I guess I totally missed that. So we need to provide there an identity user, and we have to provide a password for that. Okay, so let's create an identity user for that. Var identity equals new identity user. I guess we can use an object initializer for that. And on identity user, I guess the only thing that we need to provide right now would be email equals request dot username. I guess that should be similar like we did here when we created the identity. Let's double check. Yeah, is email and username. Okay, so we will do this exactly the same way. So email and username, which in our case would be exactly the same. Request dot username. Okay, and then we can give here the identity, and then the request dot password. I totally did not see this check password async. I don't know why. Okay, and what does this return us? So this just returns us a bool. Okay. 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 So in this case, we need to change this. So if in this case we can so it probably returns a false when user not exists. So if not equals existing identity, then we will actually do that. And else if we will do something else. Now for the existing identity, we'll need let's maybe check this. Identity exists. Okay, because if it exists, we will also need to get the identity, because we will need it to use for the claims. We need the identifier for that. So for identity equals user manager find by email async, I guess. And here we have request.username. So this should return us the user, of course. Why is this error? A local variable named identity cannot be declared. Different meaning to identity, which is already used. Where it is used? Here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. For identity user in this case. Let me see. So first call find email async and then check password async. I guess it doesn't really matter, or does it? Because first I want to check if the password is correct. If it doesn't find user, it will return false. So okay. I'm not sure what is your argument for that. That's sure. So yeah, sure. We can also try to actually do this first. But my thing is that I don't think that it actually matters in which order we actually do that. But yeah, I guess it makes a little bit more sense to actually do that, because in this case, I guess what we can do is we don't need this anymore. Aha, yeah, thank you very much. That idea was great, because we don't need this identity anymore, because we already have it. Wait. Okay, and then I guess we'll just have to actually, if we don't find it, so if this is actually null, let's maybe just because if identity user is null, then identity user already exists. But I guess we'll need also a different error code for that. So we have here identity user already exists. So this is identity creation failed. And maybe we will have identity user how should I does not exist, and that would be, let's name it 203, and then we will have maybe incorrect password, and that would be 204 or something like that. I guess that would make sense. So here in this case, if we don't find the user here, then we'll have identity user does not exist. Okay, maybe here unable to find user with the specified username. Okay, so we check if this is null, and then we already return an error result. And if not, we actually have this identity user that we can actually use here. So it totally what's wrong with that? So it totally makes sense in this case that we have this method first, because then we don't really have to create here a new object. We already get it from the database if that object already exists. Now check password async. let's name it, I don't know, valid password. And here, so if the password is not valid, in this case, incorrect password. Provided password is incorrect. Okay, so I guess we are good with that part right now. If that is not the case, we also throw an error. So if everything is okay till then, we just also need to get the user profile. And here, the user profile, okay. I mean, we could get the user profile by the identity ID that we already have here. Yeah, let's actually var user profile equals context dot user profiles dot first or default async. Now here we want to do a null check, because when we create an identity, we also create user profile. So here we can assume fairly surely that we will have everything that we need there. So it's first or default async, and we want user profile for which the identity ID, let me maybe just move this on separate line here. So where the identity ID equals to identity user.id. And of course we need to await that. So right now we would also have user profile. And if we have this user profile, I guess then that's actually the step where we can actually go on and create this login stuff or this token. Okay, so let me go here. It's actually that what we need. So yeah, let me just copy that over. So for now we would have some duplicated code, but I promise you I will extract that. And I'm not sure if probably that's also something here that everybody is doing differently. So I really first like to actually implement the things, and then I ask myself, okay, what code smells do I have here? And then I'm actually starting to JWT settings. I guess we had a typo there, so we actually need to fix that. Then identity, here we'll have the identity user. Once again, identity user, identity user, we named it here. And how did we user profile? Okay. Then yeah, here there's the typo that we had. Okay. Signing credentials, create token, write token, and that should actually be it right now. Okay, we are cool with that. So let's just review here a little bit. We have this token handler. We have this this key that we actually read from our app settings.json file, but we transform it to a byte array in ASCII format. Then we have the token descriptor, where we have the claims that we want to provide, expires, audience, issuer, and signing credentials. Then we use the token handler to create a token. And then we just use the token handler to also write that token as a string, and then we return the result. So I guess we should be good to go here, actually. So I guess we already can try that out. So yeah, let's run the application. So first we'll need to go through the registration process, because we have deleted all the registered users and things like that. Okay. So everybody that's watching, thanks once again for tuning in. I would really appreciate if you could take just 1 second to drop a hi and maybe let me know from where are you from where are you watching. That would be highly appreciated. Okay. Good. So we have this identity. So first we need this registration because we need to perform registration. So try it out. User.example.com. So this is something that we should maybe, I don't know, maybe just use a notepad. Of course, that's fairly easy, simple to remember, but yeah, let's make sure that we have that somewhere. Then the password. Remember, in the last stream we have removed all password requirements, so we can just provide here something and it should be fine. Okay, so let's have here John. Here, let's have, I don't know. So the only thing is that we have to provide a date that is in a certain range. So I guess we'll provide 1991, let's say here. Phone number, just some random numbers as a string, and the current city. I don't know, let us use Timisoara, which is my current city. By the way, which is the city that you are watching from? Because when we're creating new users, we might use that city to alternate here a little bit. Okay, so we can execute that one, and theoretically we should get back a token right now, because also the user registration process creates a token. And we did get back the token, so the registration was okay. Now let's, however, try out the login, which we implemented just now. Okay, so try it out. Now, this user.example.com, that's actually nice. Swagger is helpful here, and that would be the password. Theoretically, we should also receive a token back right now. So it's 200. Okay. But what actually? Okay, that's because, you know, remember that in the controller we actually just returned an okay. So where do we have this? In the controller we have forgotten to actually return the object correctly. You see, we just returned an okay and empty, but what we need to return is the authentication result. Okay, so I guess right now it should actually work. So from which city are you watching? Let's bring this here once again. So right now we know that we have the user, because the user is also in the database, so we can already try the login. And let's see. Password. Execute. Let's hope for the best, and we have a 200 okay. Cool. So it means that this actually works right now. Let me just also take a look into the token, JWT.io. Okay, so we have here, yes, the identity ID and user profile ID. Okay, that's okay, but it's on the other line, so it's a little bit okay. So the token is right now correct. So this means that right now, if we go back to the Swagger UI, I already have the token on my clipboard. So if I go to this endpoint, which is actually which has this authorized attribute, and if I try it out, let's first try it out without a token, and I get a 401. So I'm not authorized, which is expected, I guess. So I would have to authorize myself in Swagger. Okay, and right now, if I do the same thing, I actually get user profile. And you see that that's the user profile that was actually created when that user registered. So from now on, we can actually use this login endpoint for existing users, and we'll use the registration endpoint for users that need to register. and both endpoints for now just return some kind of like JWT token that they can use then for the further authorization purposes. So I guess that we are fairly okay with that. Cool. Watching from Kempele. It's a town in northern Finland. I assume you have a lot of snow there, I guess. We are from Finland. I'm a great Nightwish fan, by the way. I guess Nightwish has something to do with Finland. Do they? Okay. Good. Okay, so right now we have this this kind of like controller that just works. Now the only thing that we have to take care about right now is this ugly code repetition here, which is a total anti-pattern, a code smell, and whatever we actually want. So my idea is that we should actually extract this identity part to an identity service. It will be part of this application layer. Yes, Nightwish is a Finnish band. Yeah, I know, and I really love them. Cool. So we need to think about what that service should exactly contain. Because I would like the service maybe to expose a token handler. Because maybe we might want to, I don't know, in different other controllers or in the different other stages of the application, we might just want to actually, I don't know, maybe validate a token to see if the token is valid. And to do that, we would actually need this token handler, and we would also need the token descriptor for that, to perform the validation. So probably we'll need to expose these two also as properties in that specific service. And then maybe that we will get some methods for, I don't know, creating the token, method for writing the token right now. That would be actually all that we need. So we can then extract everything away. And then we'll see if we can further kind of refactor a little bit the things that we are doing here. Because here, once again, in this registration and login, we are doing some fairly similar stuff with retrieving things from the database. So we might extract that to some private method somewhere. But remember, we have these in separate handlers. So yeah, we will have kind of to evaluate a little bit if it makes sense or not to extract that in a separate service or similar. But what I would like to do right now is to have a very short break. I guess that would be, I don't know, what place, around between 5 and 10 minutes. And then I will continue to work on that. And the reason why I really do this is because I really want to finish this whole identity part today. So part of this means that we will also kind of need to rethink and redo a little bit the user profile controller and maybe also the post controller, because for the user profiles right now, the thing is that we also have here methods for deleting user profile. And I guess we'll have to think about if we really want to expose such an endpoint, or if a profile should be only deleted as part of deleting an identity. I guess we might have to think about that. But that's for sure. But also for the post controller, then we have to actually make sure also that, for instance, get all posts here, that would be a get post by ID. So this is by the post ID. Create post, that's straightforward, but update post. So right now, as part of this one, we actually don't check who actually wants to perform the update. And the idea is that we need to check that because I shouldn't be able to update a post that somebody else created. And the same way, I shouldn't be able to delete a post that somebody else created. So maybe here we'll, I don't know, extract or do some authorization based on claims. That might be something, or yeah, we'll look into what approach we'll have here. But first of all, as said, let's have a 5 to 10 minutes break and we will continue afterwards. So Please stay by, maybe grab something to drink, something to eat if you didn't have lunch so far. So yeah, hope to see you back here in a few minutes. Okay, so we are back right now. Oh, I see there are even more viewers than when I left on the break. That's cool. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you have a few seconds, just please let me know or drop a hi and let me know where are you watching from. That would really help me a lot to understand better where my audience and where my viewers are coming from. And that would be really highly appreciated. Okay, so what we want to do now. The first thing is we like to actually eliminate the code smells that we have here in our handlers right now for the identity, because we do a lot of stuff in the handle method. We also have code repetition between this handler and this handler. So yeah, that's actually not very fun. So that's something what okay. So Bogdan, you're from Ploiești. I don't know, did we meet at a certain point or not? Because I'm not sure. And MJ, hi from Sweden. I'm glad you're watching from Sweden. I actually worked with a customer from Sweden for some time, and I really enjoyed that one. So I guess it was the best working relationship with a customer that I ever had. So yeah, I only have good feelings about Sweden, but unfortunately, I was never able to actually visit Sweden. My current employer is from Sweden, Malmo. Okay, my employer was not from Sweden. Not from Malmö. I guess from Gothenburg. I guess from Gothenburg, but they were located. Some of them were even in another location that's smaller than that. I want. You went to Malmö and Halmstad. Okay, nice. I definitely want to visit Sweden, but the problem is with visits these times is it's actually very hard to actually get to do a visit, and I'm also very unlucky, I guess, because at the end of November and start of December, I just wanted to visit my brother in Austria. And just 1 week before that, they imposed lockdown in Austria, both for vaccinated and non-vaccinated. So we have to actually cancel that visit because, yeah, we would have gone there and then nothing would have happened. So I guess I didn't travel outside Romania. Oh, I traveled in Moldova, in Chisinau. But yeah, no, I'm not sure if I should say this, but for me, traveling to Moldova it doesn't really feel like traveling outside. It's more kind of like traveling within the same country. At least that's how I see that. Okay. Good. So thank you very much for jumping into the conversation. So let's see right now how we can refactor our things here, our handlers. So one thing that we have in common for both of these handlers is actually this part. Maybe even this part. Okay. So this is something that we have to extract away. Now the only question is, where should we extract this away? And I think that the best way to proceed here might be actually to create a service, because the idea behind that is you attended the EdChess presentation you gave. Okay. Because the names seemed kind of familiar to me, but I didn't exactly know from where. Actually, I was in touch with Andre, I guess the past days. Maybe I'll do another presentation for EdChess. I don't know exactly when, March or April, something like that. But yeah. So now I know why you seem familiar to me. Okay. Cool. So I say that we might even maybe let's just close this to have a better overview about what's happening. From there, I started watching your YouTube and your Twitch channels. Yeah, but the Twitch channel I kind of like gave up. I just did some streaming, but only playing chess, because for the programming part, I really in Twitch, I don't know, I get 1 viewer, 2 viewers, and that's basically it. So I have started to stream only on YouTube. Okay, so we have models, options, posts, and yeah, these are for the different features that we have and the command handlers. I guess we might have here another folder. Yes, it's called directory here somewhere. Where is directory? And let's call this services. And we'll create a class here. And class interface. And I will call this identity service. Now I will not expose this through an interface. I will just create a class for that, for this service, and that would actually be it. Now, in this service, we will not perform any database stuff. We don't need a data context, but what we need are the JWT settings. So let's say read only JWT settings, and let's call this JWT settings. And I'm not sure if we need anything else, but if we will need, we will kind of like add this. Of course, we will hook this up to the dependency injection in ASP.NET Core, so we will be able to get constructor injections here. So options of JWT settings. Let's call this options like this, because maybe we will also have other options objects here at some point. So JWT settings equals JWT options dot value. So standard options pattern in ASP.NET Core. I was thinking right now once again, but still I came to the same conclusion. I will not use an interface to expose this service. I will just use that service. I saw you move to Rider. Do you find it better than VS 2022? Okay, that's actually a very nice question. And whenever it comes to this idea of if I find it best or not, I guess that Rider right now actually supports my needs, at least for this channel, better than Visual Studio does. Because there are a lot of things here in Rider that are built in, or well, that you actually get kind of like by default with just a $14 subscription per month. That would help me to actually do a lot of nice stuff here. For instance, one thing that you don't have in Visual Studio, and that's actually very, very helpful, or it was helpful for some of the videos that I did on this channel, is this show project diagram. Because it allows you actually to see all your project dependencies, and here for instance you can even show the transitive dependencies and to see exactly what depends on what and how things flow. You can even enable here code analysis and enable coupling analysis, and that will kind of like tell you how coupled actually different projects are one with the other. And for instance, if I want to check how coupled is my API layer, for instance, to my data access layer, so I can simply click on this line, and in this case I can actually see that this is coupled virtually only by the fact that I use the data context, or that I add the data context to the dependency injection container. And that's actually good, because you can't really see that you are coupled here to the data access layer, because you're just using that for the dependency injection part. Now, for instance, if I would go here on this line, and here I would have this coupling or well, references to the data context or to the data access layer also in other classes, then that would be wrong. So that already kind of like helps me a lot, because you can easily try to actually find out what's happening in your application or not. And actually in the video, there is a video which is called, I guess, should we use the repository pattern or not. Then in that video I heavily used actually this feature to actually explain or show exactly what's a difference in a project architecture when you use the repository pattern and when you don't use the repository pattern. And from there we had a longer discussion about what things about pros and cons of the different approaches. And is ReSharper including in the same license? Yes, Rider comes by default with the ReSharper tools. So I still have to get familiar with all those code refactoring stuff and things like that. So I'm still new to Rider, so I'm still learning a lot of stuff. But then another very cool thing that's actually built in here in Rider, and that is something that I also use a lot for my, or for the latest video I have used, and I'll probably use it a lot for the videos that will actually come, is that, for instance, also in these tools, I have this IL viewer, which kind of like shows me the intermediate language that is generated for a certain class, for instance. And that's also very, very nice. And I also have a video, that video regarding string performance, where we can actually look into the IL to actually see exactly, okay, if we use the different approaches to kind of like achieve the same thing, what's actually the difference between that. So that's another very, very nice thing that that we could have, which is which you don't once again have by default in Visual Studio. Now, of course, it also needs to build the project. Yeah, IL is totally helpful, but right now it probably builds it. I didn't view the IL here for this project right now, so probably it will take I have to build the project to view. Okay, I don't know, let's build this. So yeah, the IL viewer is definitely also one other very, very nice thing here. And yeah, you see here we get the IL that was actually generated for this class. And that's actually fairly cool. So I don't want really to say that I'm very, very good at understanding, or that I would be able to write my own IL or write directly IL code. But it's definitely, if you look into the IL thing here, I guess you can already, well, get a pretty nice overview about what's actually happened and what actually gets wrong, what gets allocated, if something gets allocated, when things are boxed and unboxed, which is very, very important. So there are a lot of things in which you, if you pick into the IL viewer, you can already grab a lot of information that might be helpful for you. So that's another very important reason why I switched to Rider. And I also find that overall it's actually faster than VS 2022. So yeah, these are all the premises to actually use it. And with that $14 license that I was talking about, you actually also get the .memory tool, which actually helps you a lot to take memory dumps to actually analyze those, to see exactly how the garbage collector is performing, when it is performing, because that the garbage collector can actually slow down your application quite a bit. So yeah, and I guess there's, but yeah, these are the main reasons why I actually switched to Rider. So yeah, that's and one other thing is, and that's really cool, that we have in Rider. Let me, I don't know, let me maybe go here in the command handler, and I don't know how can I show this right now. Okay, maybe let's go on the controller, on any controller, identity controller. We have this mediator.send. Okay, so here you see that if we want to go into this, I don't know, here I go, let's go into this one. Okay, doesn't it do anything? Let's, okay, that's a little bit unfortunate, but the idea is that when you're using external libraries, when you actually, I don't know, navigate to those methods, this is only the interface, so then I can see only this this type of interface. But for instance, if I want to go here in this T response, that's only from an interface. So now the idea is that this is abstracted away, but when you have, for instance, methods and classes from libraries, and you actually press F12 to navigate to them, Rider actually downloads the code, of course, if available publicly on GitHub or something like that. It actually downloads the code, and you can see the entire method. So you can see exactly what happens there. But maybe we have another example for that. Maybe we have another example for that in this validate GUID, and we have this GUID.parse. So that's not only for external libraries, that's also, I guess, for C#. And you see here, if you actually use Visual Studio, you actually just get the method definition, but actually you get here into exactly, okay, what happens, how is this actually implemented. And see that here we have this read-only span of char, which means that, for instance, here I can already see that everything that happens here happens then on the stack. Nothing will be allocated, because this is what spans actually are for. And if we go into this try parse method, we can see exactly, okay, it calls this one, and this one actually calls this one. And here you can actually take a look at the logic of, okay, how did Microsoft implement this concept of parsing a GUID. So that's also very useful, because you can learn a lot just by navigating through code that was written by others. And it's also helpful because you can really see exactly how different things are implemented, and even learn from that. So that's another very cool thing that I see here in ReSharper. And I guess those are already reasons enough to actually kind of like use mostly ReSharper here. Now at work, where there are also other things, it's not my decision, it's also about licenses. We are using Visual Studio 2019 still, but yeah, here on all my projects I try to actually use Rider. The only exception right now where I don't use Rider is the live stream for ASP.NET Core for absolute beginners, because that one is actually targeted for really beginner devs. That's they have probably their first experience with, or one of the first experience with ASP.NET Core, and most of them, I would say 99%, are accustomed to see things in Visual Studio. And if you bring them in a different IDE, probably you will lose a lot of their focus and attention, because they will try to understand, okay, but here I see that everything is different than what we have in Visual Studio, so I don't really want to bring that to them. So for that stream, I'm still using Visual Studio, but for most of the other stuff, I use Rider. Okay, so yeah, I guess we have to go back here to our handler, or to our service. Once again, here we have the service. Let's just add it to the DI container, and I guess we will create a new register for that, because probably we'll end up having a lot of let's add a new class here. Let's call this application layer register. Okay, so this one should implement, I guess, the web application builder interface, and we need to implement that. Okay, why? Okay, implement missing members. So here what we would need to do is builder.services. I mean, this is a service that I guess we could even use as transient, but it might be useful to actually have it scoped per request, I guess. So let's have it scoped, and identity service, which should be here. Okay, and right now I don't really have to pass any objects. And in this register, we'll register all the services that we will have in our application layer, I guess, so that That would be the whole idea here. So right now, starting now, this identity service is part of the DI container, which is kind of like okay. Now let's try to actually build this service even further. So as I said, right now I'm thinking this through as we go with that. Now I want to go to identity commands, the handlers. So I'm trying to understand exactly what we are doing here. So we have this token descriptor, which is the security token descriptor, in which we provide the claim's identity. And I'm trying to understand which are the dynamic parts here. So I guess we have this identity user and we have this user profile, and we mostly actually get information from them. The important thing is who should be responsible for adding claims. I guess the identity service. And if we need, we might expose methods to just add some claims to the principals, or maybe further configuring exactly what claims do we want to add. Maybe we can provide here something like a configuration object for the method, if this will be needed at a certain point. The only thing is, when the service gets constructed, I guess we will not be able to actually create this token descriptor. We can create this token handler, because right now it's a default creation, and then everybody will use this token handler. I guess we might also need to have this token descriptor somewhere. Of course, it could be null until it, but then if it is added as scoped, it will actually be almost always null. Only when we add something to it. Yeah, let's see. First of all, the one thing that we will need is for sure the JWT security handler. So public JWT security token handler. Here, I guess we can already instantiate that in this property. Okay, there's a question. Sub and email is same in claims? Yes, it is the same. Sub, it means the subject. You can place whatever you actually want there. You can maybe place a GUID or I don't know. So you can really think about what you want to place in the subject. I really went with the email because it was the most at hand right now. But you could place whatever you want there in that claim. So it doesn't really matter what you place there, as long as it makes sense a little bit to your application. The values for the claims, they don't need to be unique. You can have different keys that will have the same value. So that's not a problem, because each claim is actually intended for a different use. So even if they have similar values, then that's not really a big problem. Okay, so we have this property, which is the token handler. I'm not sure if we can also have this, because I'd like also to get this security token descriptor. The only thing is that when the service gets constructed, we don't have an identity user and we don't have user profile ID. So we will have to actually expose a method for that. The idea is that once you actually do that, as long as the instance leaves, I want to have kind of like this information already available. To not call this method to get this every time we would, because we might be in a scenario where we, I don't know, maybe we just want to create a token, but maybe in the same request we want to validate another token, and for the validation of the other token we might need to have the exact same security token descriptor. So I guess I'll still put that as a property. I guess I'll still put that as a property. What's the type? Security token descriptor. Okay. Security token descriptor. Okay. But now I'm thinking the other way around. Actually, the callers, when they would actually want to create a token or to validate a token, they will just have to also provide the security descriptor for that. So generating this descriptor is actually not part of the identity service itself, because this identity service itself doesn't need to know anything about the application flows. And for instance, the fact that we actually need to add an identity ID and a user profile ID, that's a concern about, or that's a part of the application flow itself. So the handler should provide this in a certain way. Now, the only question that I ask myself right now is, should we maybe expose in the service a method to generate a security token descriptor and just provide, but not, because if we provide, now I guess that consumers need to provide the security token descriptor. I guess that consumers might need to provide that. Okay, so in this case, we don't need that. We just need the token handler. Okay, so right now, let's have here a method public that would return, let's see, what does this return? It returns a security token. Okay, token, then create, okay, let's add the missing things here. Now, the only thing that we might need to actually check here is, so we need a security token descriptor here that we get. Question is, do we need anything else? I guess no, because that's security token descriptor, but that would, On the other hand, the application layer should actually not be responsible to know exactly what the audience is, what the issuer is. But you know what? The application layer should just provide us with the claims identity. Or maybe just with a list of claims that needs to be added. I'm thinking right now, because I want this logic, like when does the token expires, what audience it has, what the issuer is, the signing credentials. That should be the concern of the identity service, not of the handler itself. That's why I'm thinking maybe if the handler or if consumers will just actually provide not the entire security token descriptor that should be generated by the identity service, but actually they should maybe just provide a list of claims that we would need to add. Yeah, let's make the consumers provide a claim identity, and everything else will be handled by the service itself. Okay, so create security token, and here we have then claims identity. Okay, so in that case we can kind of like create here this new token descriptor. So let's move to the service to do that, and here for the subject we don't actually have to add this all stuff here because we have this identity that the consumer will need to provide. Now it will expire in, okay, and then we have the key here. Okay, but this key should be in the JWT settings, so it would be underscore JWT settings, and we have the key there. But actually the key should be a byte array. So actually what we will do here is that shouldn't be public, that should be private. Read only, I guess it's a byte array. And let's name this key. And we will set this key here in the constructor and say key equals, and that would be, how did we do this? Encoding dot ASCII dot get bytes, and here in get bytes you would need the JWT settings and the key that we actually read from the settings file, and then we have the key and we know the key. Okay, so that we can reuse that key here. Okay, so we are good with that. Okay, what else do we need? So we have this token descriptor. Now the thing is, so if this is scoped, it will be one instance per request. So if we actually do different type of things within the same request, maybe we want to have different security token descriptors. So I'm not sure if we actually might need to actually do that. Maybe we'll just extract this in a method. Let me just also return what we actually need to return here, and we'll just return this token handler create token. The token handler we have as a property. Token handler, and we use this token descriptor. Token handler dot create token. Okay, and now we are returning this type of thing. So we might need to extract this in a private method so that it can be reused, so that we don't have to write this every time that we might need to actually generate a new security token descriptor. So we might have for this a private security token descriptor get token descriptor, and here we'll just provide the claims identity. Claims identity, then we can move this away. And we can actually just return that, and it should be fine. And this would be then equal to get token descriptor, and we provide the identity. So I did extract this in a private method because I can see that this might be probably reused even within the lifetime of the object. We might actually want to work with different token descriptors, for instance. So in that case, we extract this away, and whenever somebody actually wants to or needs the descriptor, we will generate actually through this method here. And okay, so this method create security token will then just return the token. Then we would have probably another method, public, that would return a string, and get or get token as, or maybe write it. The reason is I think we should expose two different methods for creating the token and writing a token, because consumers might just want to get a token and to, well, use it to, I don't know, maybe inspect the claims of the token, validate it, or I don't know, do a bunch of other stuff on that. And then I think that we should then have a separate operation just for getting a token and returning the string representation of that token. And right token, let's do it like this. And what we will need here is, of course, the security token. Okay. And then here we'll just return. For that we have this token handler, right token, and the token. Okay, so these methods are now exposed here. That should make a lot of sense. So right now we can already come here, I guess, and redo our handlers. So let's start first with the login. So first of all, we will need here. So I guess we don't need the JWT settings anymore. Let's see. I guess we'll see afterwards, and we'll maybe remove that. So let's have here private read-only identity service. Okay, and since we have wired this up in DI, we can simply require it here. Okay, and also assign that. Okay, we should be good to go with this one. Okay, so now in the handle method, so the first part of the handle method, that's performing stuff on the database, whatever. We don't care about it right now. We might also want to refactor that, but as a next step. And then we have actually this kind of stuff here that actually needs to go away. So all this stuff here actually can right now, except this one. So let's just extract that. Let's just remove everything here. Var claims identity equals, but not car. It's not a car. That's a var, of course. So var claims identity, and that would be equal to new claims identity. So this one, which should be fine. And then we would have var token equals identity service, create security token, and then we have to provide this claims identity. Okay, and then the payload would actually be not the token handler, but identity service dot write token, and we just provide a token and we return the result. Okay, cool. So we have done that. Right now we have extracted this away, and right now I guess that these JWT settings, yes, that's not used anymore here, because the only place where it should be used should be in the identity service. Okay, and then we can remove even that one from the constructor because we don't really need that. But still, let's keep this on a different line, I guess. Okay, so right now we have actually done that. Cool. So right now, I guess we can even copy this and go to the other handler and actually do exactly the same stuff. So first of all, we will need the identity service. Okay. We will not need the JWT settings anymore. So we will remove that from here, and we will also remove that from here. Now, what we will need instead is the identity service instead. Identity service, which we'll call identity service, I guess. And then we'll just assign that. It should work. Cool. So right now, once again, we are here in this part, and that actually can, I don't know, I guess it was this part that we can actually delete right now. So claims identity, new claims identity. Okay, but here we have the name of this user just being identity. Okay. Because here the variable is actually named differently. Okay. No. Okay, that was not identity. What's the problem here? I guess it's profile. Yeah, it's like that. So we are good with that. We use the identity service to create a security token and the same service to actually write that token. Cool. Now, the only thing that repeats between these two handlers is right now this logic of generating this claims identity. However, if that's a regular object instantiation, so even if we see this on several lines of code, logically this is actually one single thing. So I wouldn't be bothered here. And I guess I really don't want to extract this to a common place, because what's the whole concept of having these handlers? Now, these handlers make everything or each action that happens in our application to be, at least the way I see it, very, very self-contained and atomic in a certain way. Or in other words, each handler should have only one reason to change. Now, I can assume scenarios where will might be actually to generate a different type of claims when you have the user registration, and generate different type of claims when we have the login. So in this case, the reason for change in these two handlers, it's actually it's actually different. So I would say that it kind of like would make sense to not try to take this, or well, to extract this in some common method for all the handlers. So I will leave it like that. So right now, I guess we have refactored a little bit our things here, but still our methods here, they look very, very ugly. So let's see, what do we try to do here? So we get user from the database. That's the registration. So it's find by email, and it's also find by email. Okay. So I mean, that part is actually fairly equal. Now the only difference is that we actually have this the other way around. Okay. I'm just thinking about this. Now this line is just find by email async, so that's actually no reason to extract this to a separate method, because then the logic for actually returning this might be actually different. But here, if we have like a method, if we create a utils class for the identity, and we have a method, for instance, that well, something like gets by email or finds by email, and but actually the evaluation of the response, that should still be done by this handler. And then we create this identity user, and then we have this transaction, in which once again the logic that we have here in this handler is different than the logic that we have in the login handler, because here we have this transaction because we have to do different type of operations. In the login handler, we just need to retrieve data from the database, so they are totally different. So yeah, if profile ID basic info, then we create that. So I guess I don't see really a way how we could refactor this even further right now. I mean, some refactoring might be possible, but that's not something that I would do today. Maybe extract some cross-cutting concerns like the try and catch in something like a pipeline behavior from mediator. That would once again make everything cleaner, because we would get rid of all the try catch blocks. So we would need to investigate how to do that. But other than that, I guess there's no real way of actually refactoring this. Well, if I'll have an idea, or if you have an idea, just let me know, and we'll kind of like look into that. But yeah, let's make sure that the application still works, and we'll actually just use the login endpoint to try it out. Method looks very long. Yeah, in fact, that's why I was actually trying to find a way to refactor that. But the thing is, when we look into that, the method is long, but it actually does stuff that that's actually only specific for that specific handle method. So it's not really something that can be reused. But indeed, that method is too long. I don't like that. Also, I mean, we could extract private methods. Yeah, I guess that would be something to do. But once again, that would be, yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if this login works here. So we have this login. Let's try that out. We have this user example.com, and we have this password, and we know that we already have this user in the database. So let's try to log in, and login was successful. We did receive the token, so everything seems still to work correctly. And let me see if the validation of the token actually happens correctly by going to these user profiles and try it out. Execute. Right now we have a 401 because we are not authorized, and that's correct. So let's make sure that Swagger gets us authorized. Okay, and let's rerun that. So right now we get user profile, which means that everything's fine. Cool. So we have this still working. Now, there is one other thing that I would like to go into when it comes to this idea of implementing this authorization, is maybe revisiting a little bit our controllers, like for instance, the user profile controller. And here we have to decide, I don't know, should we expose a delete user profile method or not? Because user profiles and identities should actually belong together. So when you delete one of them, the other should also be deleted. So I'm not sure. I'm still thinking if we would need to expose this this deletion actually through the identity controller or through this user profile controller. But since the creation of the user profile actually goes through the identity, and by the way, we have to remove the create user profile method. We have to remove that because you shouldn't be able to create a user profile, at least for now. So the only way that you could create a user profile is when you are registering, and that goes through the identity handler. So we would kind of like need to remove this method, I guess. And then for the posts, there's actually where some more important stuff would actually go on, because we have to restrict, for instance, the update post and the delete post only based on the user profile ID claim if you really are the owner of that post or of that comment. So only in that case we should be able to actually perform the update or the deletion of that comment. So here we will have to actually take a peek into the claims and actually see how we'd implement that. So I guess that's what we will still do today. But once again, I will just want to have a very short 5 to 10 minutes break, and when we come back, we'll actually refactor our controllers. Maybe if we have ideas on how to refactor those methods that are still very long, those handle methods, we'll actually also do that. I guess probably the easiest way is just to extract the different parts in private methods, but those private methods should actually be exactly the same for, or should be implemented separately in both of the handlers. So that's I guess one approach that we could have. So yeah, once again, please stay tuned. Maybe also grab something to drink, something to eat. I don't know what you want to do, but stay tuned, because in 5 to 10 minutes we will be back and we still have some work to do today. So I hope to see you very very soon again. Okay, so we are back, and I see that there are some questions now. First, I guess here we're generating tokens for authorization purpose. That's what we do in our identity service. We generate the tokens, and only authorized users are allowed to perform update and delete actions. Yeah, that's, I don't know, based on each application's requirements. Even gets might be actually restricted to something. I have seen people use better than token while authorization, but here you are not. Is there any specific reason? I'm not sure I get the question because we are using the bearer token, but Swagger in each request will add automatically the authorization header. So we are using that. So we are doing that, but that's handled directly by Swagger in this case. It's not something that we control directly. It's Swagger that is actually adding that header, but the header is there. Otherwise, we couldn't actually do anything here. So yeah, that's done by Swagger. And I did think a little bit about, and maybe this idea with the claims restrictions, that's something that I might need to better think about that, because I'm not sure that we can just use a policy here, because in that policy we are not able to define exactly the criteria that, for instance, in order to be able to update a post, you must be the owner of the post. So that would probably not be possible there. So if we might do this in a filter, probably, but I'm not sure if the authorization filter could help us a lot in this case. But yeah, I guess we'll look into that. Because when you try to actually, I'm thinking right now, when you try to actually update a post, you don't know exactly, or the authorization system will actually, or doesn't know exactly what post will be actually updated, so that it can check the user profile ID from the claim to match the identity or the user profile ID of the post. So I guess that's something that I will have to actually how will do? I think I missed that part. Can we show like where Swagger is adding the header automatically in the code? So yeah, I can do that. But so when we have configured authorization, I guess it was 2 episodes ago when we have started to actually configure the authorization. One thing that we have here is, let me check, it should be in the API layer, and it should be in these options. Here we have these configure Swagger options. Now, these are the options that we use to actually configure our Swagger UI and what exactly should be used there, because here we also use to actually use also different versions. So that's what we are doing here. And in the second part here, we actually configure Swagger to actually use a certain security scheme that we have created here. So that's the security scheme that we define for Swagger, and we say that the scheme that it should be better, the format should be JWT, that it should be in the header, and yeah, it goes through HTTP and things like that. So this is where we actually do that. And what how this actually looks like in this case, let's rerun the application. Let's rerun the application to actually navigate to the website. So right now, for instance, you see that in Swagger, as we have configured that, we have this authorize. And here in this authorize, we just have to provide the value of, or here we have to provide the token, and then the token will actually be posted in all the headers. Let me maybe just show you that. So let's first log in. let's maybe have a demonstration of that. So that would be the username, that would be the password, so we know that we already have this user in database. So here this login process will return us the token, which is this one. So if we go, for instance, we copy that and we go here in this authorize and we see, okay, that's the token and authorize, and we are actually logged in, let's say, into Swagger. So now, for instance, this endpoint we have added that authorize attribute. So right now, let me even maybe I don't know, click this one, and here we are on the network, and let's try that out. Okay, so we did receive a response here, or our message status 401. Okay, why is this 401? That's cool, because just before, and you see here that we have this header. Just before the break, that actually worked. That actually worked just before the break. Request finished. Bearer was challenged. Requires an authenticated user. Okay, but we have an authenticated user. Why do we get this error? Because we didn't. It actually worked just before the break, so that's strange. That's strange. Use authentication, use authorization. So that's kind of like strange. But we can see here in this one that we have also the headers, request headers, and here in these request headers we have this authorization, bearer, and then the token itself. Now the problem was unfortunately somewhere else, and I'm not sure exactly where, but you copied commas in the token. Okay, so let's maybe just run again. That could be. Okay, so I copied the quotes. Okay, yeah, I was not careful. Let's log in again. Try it out. That's correct. That's what we need to provide. Then we get the result, and let's make sure maybe not to copy the quotes. I guess they are not copied right now. So authorize. Let's provide that. Close. Maybe open this once again. And user profiles and try it out. Yeah, right now is okay. And here we can see already that in the headers we have authorization and bearer and then token. So exactly like it should be. So we have that in place already. Cool. So I was thinking right now maybe in this session, because it's, I don't know how long I'm streaming, almost 2 hours and a half. The only thing that I want to finish up right now is maybe this refactoring of the handlers. And what I would like to do is actually extract all these type of things in separate methods right now. And separate private methods, so that this handle method is a little bit cleaner, and that we have instead some other well, private methods that are well scoped or targeted to perform one certain task. So here we would have, so what's the first thing that we actually would like to extract? Now we would like to extract this idea of existing identity. So if this exists, so this is one first part that we have to find, but we will still need to actually make a check here. And now the idea is that we need to find a way to extract all this part, because otherwise that would actually make no sense. But extracting only that part actually doesn't work. Because we just need to put something in the result. Okay, we can create a private method and we can have the result as being of one of the parameters, but we still need to make a check here, for instance. But I guess the only check that we can make here because here we already just returned the result. I guess maybe it could work. Let's see. So let's, what are we doing here? So we are here in the register user identity. So we are in the registration process. So what we can do here is, yeah, let's just see if that works. I really can't imagine it right now working, but yeah, when we write it, maybe it will make sense. So what we are doing here is we are checking, so if we are validating if the user is not already in the database, because if it is, we cannot register that user. So let me see, where does this method end? It does end here. So let's have a private. What should we return here? I guess what are we returning here? Existing identity. It's an identity user. So yeah, let's return an identity user. Private identity user. Validate identity does not exist. Okay. And here, you know what? We can actually make this like that. Bool. Okay. So it would return a bool. Now, what we will have here, we will get in an operation result of string, I guess, and it will be the result. And if we have a problem, then we will actually tweak this result and add the errors to it, and maybe just return. We can't just return that here. So yeah, okay. But then we can have here a simple if check. And you know what we can else have here? We can have the identity user as an auth variable. Okay. So what is the problem here? Identity. What's the problem here? Do I have a typo? No, or identity user. Okay. So that would be an auth variable. So if we find the user, we put it in the auth variable. If not, well, we don't, and that will be null, but we will also return false. Hello from Moscow, Russia. Thank you very much for joining, Sergey. How's the weather in Moscow right now? Is it very, very cold or just cold? Okay, so we have this this method here. Let's try right now to extract this here somehow. So I guess that's this part that we will need to extract. So let's just move this away. From here, we will move it into here. For existing, okay, that should be async and task. Task of bool, okay, and here we can then of course await. Now here we don't have the request. Okay, so maybe we should also provide the request as a parameter. Now what is this? Register identity, that is the request. Okay, so let's also add this to our method, but it should be why does it give an error on the out? Async method cannot have out parameters. Okay, okay. Yeah, around -1, 0. Okay, that's not too bad, actually. That's quite okay, I would say. It's the same what we have in Romania right now. Okay, so in async methods, we cannot have out. That's, of course, okay. Okay, But then we have to return the identity user itself. But register user, register identity, and I guess that was the request. Okay, so right now we have the request. Cool. So we validate if this exists. So if this does not exist, then we actually don't have this result, and we actually don't even want to return the result. But I guess in this case, okay, we cannot return the result, but we can tweak it because it's a reference type. So if we tweak it here in the method, all these tweaks will also be done. So here we can simply have this one. And if resistance, and here we will just return null. Okay. And if the existing identity is everything okay, then we will just return existing identity. Okay, what's the problem here? That's task of bool. Okay, change that. This would be a task of identity user, and let's maybe move this on a separate line so that it's visible. Okay, so we are returning the existing identity. What's the problem here? Change type of method to validate identity does not exist to task of identity user. Okay, but it is a task of identity user. Okay, I'm not sure. But I guess that should actually work. Everything I watch the CQRS approach in action, I wonder if I could turn it into the vertical slice architecture, which appeals more to me. Actually, of course you can do that. And kind of like not fully like Jimmy Bogart says, because I really don't think that Jimmy Bogart's approach to the vertical slice architecture by having everything actually in nested classes within the controllers is feasible for larger applications, because yeah, it's for code readability that actually doesn't really work. But in some sense, we have here the vertical slice architecture, because as you can see here in this application layer, we have structured everything. Or yeah, maybe we could add another folder called features, but we have, for instance, here the posts. So everything that is for the posts is actually in this vertical slice. Then for the user profiles, once again, we have the comments, the queries, and the handlers. So in a certain way, this is sliced vertically because we have for each feature, actually, we have a dedicated folder, and we have dedicated handlers, commands, and queries, and things similar to that. So in a certain way, this is a little bit sliced vertically. Of course, Jimmy Bogart's approach, as said, from my point of view, in regular applications, even mid-sized applications, will result, from my point of view, that's very subjective, but from the code readability perspective, that's not really helping a lot. So yeah, because that would mean that everything that we have in the application layer, or mostly everything that we have in the application layer, we should have in the API layer if we follow 100% Jimmy's approach to that. And I don't think that that is a good idea. But still, we are kind of like organizing here the folders based on these features. VSA to me looks closer to view screen in terms of features. Yeah, that's also, but also it's also, yeah, in a on a screen in a regular MVC application, you could have really a lot of stuff there, and you could have a lot of different commands. Or no, because you would actually use only one command to get all the data that is needed for a certain screen. Yeah, I guess that that would make sense. That would totally make sense. Okay, so let's also come back here to this one. And guys, before we proceed, once again, I just wanted to tell you, if you want to support this channel, because we do a lot of stuff here, a lot of live coding sessions. We try to also publish videos very regularly. A very first thing that you could do is just make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit also the notification bell, so that you are notified whenever something new is coming up on this channel. And of course, if you could then maybe also distribute and let your friends know about this channel, or anybody that you think might be interested in this type of content, then just feel free to share that. Even, I don't know, on Reddit or different forums, so wherever you might think it would make sense, that would be very, very helpful. And if you want to go the extra mile, we have here just under this chat box, basically where you write your messages, there is this super thanks button that you could use for yeah, for just saying thank you, and yeah, maybe using a custom sticker there, then that would be great. Subscribe. Thank you very much, Sergey. I didn't know that that you are subscribed to this channel, but I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go back to our stuff here. So we have this method, which is this validate identity does not exist, that returns actually this identity user. So if we go back here to our part, so we have this identity user, and we can actually replace this var identity equals await and validate here. And what do we need to provide here? I guess we need to provide the result and we need to provide the request. I guess these are the two things that we need to provide here. So we have this, you know what, because we already know that here in this method, if we cannot get the identity, we already set the result to be on to have the is error flag on true, and to also add the errors. We can just simply do a very, very simple if check instead of having a lot of lines as we did previously. We can simply just say, for instance, here if identity equals null, which means that something went wrong there. We know that the result has already been tweaked by this method, and we can just return the result there because it will contain all the errors. Okay, what are you suggesting me, Ryder? Remove if statement. Okay, how should I remove that? Okay. But I'm not sure why I should remove that. Because I need that. Expression is always false. Why is it always false? I don't know. Do you see maybe why they say that this expression is always false? Why do they say that it's always false? Okay, I guess the problem is here somehow. So, no, okay. So this approach would actually work for our login. But for the registration, yeah, okay. So I guess the common way that we proceed is correct, but we should return something else here. So probably we still need to actually return here a bool. Okay. So I guess we need to still return here a bool. Okay. So okay, a bool. Okay, and then if this kind of like happens, then we return false, and otherwise we return true. Because it will always be null because we are checking. So if it is not equal null, so yeah, I totally get what the problem was. So in this case, we can go back where we use the method, and okay, validated creation validated. Okay, and here if creation validated, so if this is not validated, it would be like that. Then we know that we can just return the result because it will already contain all the errors that it has. Now the only thing is we still need to create the identity, but I guess that one, or the logic for creating the identity, Hmm. We should actually move in a different method. Okay. So let's here, what could we have? Error code. So here we actually also do a lot of stuff here with the results if things go wrong. Okay. So then this is the first or the next step that process does is private async a task, and I assume that one will return an identity user. In this case, create identity user async. Yeah, maybe we'll just have to also go to the other method and add that async. Thank you very much, Bogdan, for being here. Okay. So right now we have what we need here. We need an operation result. That would be what's our operation result? I guess it's an operation result of string, because in the end it just will return a string. However, that's not really important to us. Result. And the other thing that we need is the register identity, and that would be the request. Okay, cool. So we are good with that right now. So let's go up one step, and we are actually okay. We are having this transaction here, but that's actually not a problem, I guess, because we can begin the transaction, and maybe, I don't know, yeah, maybe IDB context transaction. That we should also pass the transaction. IDB context transaction. Okay, so we need to also pass that. Well, and right now we can, I guess, so this is the transaction, and this is what we actually want to do here. So we can remove everything from here, because that's actually the part where we are creating the identity. Okay, so we have this var created identity equals user manager create identity. Here we need the identity, and we can provide here var identity equals new identity user, and we can use an object initializer here. Okay, not like that, not like that. And here in the object initializer we have I don't know, email equals request dot where is it? I guess username, and then we can have the username, and that would be also the request of username. So we are cool with that. We have the identity right now. Then we create the identity. Now, if the created identity has an error here, we can just here not to return the result, but return null. And otherwise, we just return the created identity. But that's the result. Okay, that's the result. We want to return the identity user from that. Return created identity. Okay, and it actually doesn't have that. Let us check once again in the method what exactly do we have there. What exactly do we have there? So it's just we create the identity. But then we reuse the identity here. So we might, okay, but we cannot actually have this as an out variable, which is not nice. But by the time that I guess we can still do that. We just return the identity here. and that should return everything that we need. So we should return the identity, and that should actually work, I guess. So we have here this user, okay, and then we can have here var identity equals await, and here we have this, how did we call this? Create identity user async. We have to provide a result, we need to provide a request, and we need to provide a transaction. And I guess that should be it. And right now, the only if check that we can do here is if the identity is null. If identity is null, I guess we can just return result. We would be cool with that. But why say here expression is always false? Why is it always false? Am I right to say if I want to shift a persistence of the posts and comments to NoSQL, say MongoDB, and have the identity in MS SQL, all we need to do is attach 2DB context and use it in some handlers. Yes, actually, yes. That's totally correct. And that's even totally feasible. The cool thing about using this approach with handlers is that you can even, for instance, I don't know, in some handlers you might use only EF4, in some other handlers you might use, I don't know, maybe MongoDB. So you're really not tied to anything, because each handler actually represents a fully encapsulated action in your application, and you can then play and tweak around with that however you want, and it won't affect any other functionality of the application. And that's from my point of view the main reason why it's actually very why it's more useful to use this approach than the regular services approach. So why actually, so if this created identity actually is succeeded, okay, return null, possible null reference return. Okay, but that's okay. So let's look into it, because it says that it's the statement if is null will be always true. So if the created identity succeeded is not correct, then we actually do this a lot of things and we return null. But if this is succeeded, then we just return the identity. So I'm really not sure how this, I'm not really sure about this warning. Expression is always false. Why is it always false? Because here we just return null. In this case, it will be true. So if created identity succeeded, if it didn't succeed, then what we will return is null. It will not return the identity. Okay, so that's kind of like a strange thing. I think I don't agree with this wording from Ryder. Let me know maybe if you have an idea why Ryder says that this is always false. Because that's even nullable, so it actually sees that it actually can be null. So I really don't agree right now with this warning. Let's look once again, but so we are creating this identity here, and then we try to create that. This returns actually a result in which we have the succeeded, or and on which we have the errors in case we have errors. And if we have errors, we do our stuff of rolling back the transaction and populating our result object with all the errors that we might have there, and then we return null. We explicitly return null. So if the creation of the identity will not be successful, this will be totally null. Otherwise, we will return the identity. So yeah, I really don't get that. I guess I will just skip this for now, because I don't agree with this warning. If identity equals null, expression is always false. I really can't see why it is always false. But yeah, let's see. So if we have reached that far, then we actually let's maybe just leave a line here. Don't we need a commit somewhere? Yeah, but the commit is in the end here. When we create the user profile, so we'll also have that. Actually now, because right now, after we create the identity, we need to create the user profile. So in that case, okay, I'm thinking about here. So in this case, we need to create user profile. Okay. Private async task. I guess we return the user profile here if we need that. So private async task user profile, create user profile async. Here I guess we should actually have more or less the same parameters that we get. Okay, so then we would actually need to move that entire logic like this one. That's the profile info. Okay, let's just move this entire logic right now. But what we will do here is I guess we'll just commit the transaction at the end. Now I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't, we should not roll back the transaction in the method itself. We should roll back in this if. I guess that would be okay. Let's just take these two here. var profile info, create basic info, first name, request last name, paste username, profile info. That's okay, but here we also need the identity. So yeah, let's also provide the identity. Be like that. So we have this here, and then theoretically what we could do here is we can say, and here we can actually use the try catch and try context dot user profiles dot add user profile. Okay, we have profile. It's only profile. You know what? Here, this creation could also actually throw something. So in this case, we might even put everything here in this catch, because we want to roll back the transaction even if we have an exception like for the validation. We will of course rethrow that exception to be handled by the catch blocks that we have in the handler directly. So this catch block here for us is actually await context.save changes async. So the catch block here for us, it's actually only there to just wait transaction dot rollback async. and then we just rethrow that. So the only thing is that if everything's okay, what we will return there is a return profile that was created. We should be good to go with that one. So let's go back to our method and take a look here. Okay, so here we can just remove this one. That's what we don't need anymore. And here, for instance, we can user profile, create profile. That's we actually create user profile async, and we'll have to provide the result, the request, and the transaction. Okay, what's the problem with you? We should, I don't know, await. I'm not sure if that is the problem, but why is it like this? Has 4 parameters but invokes only. Okay, so what is the first? We also need to provide the identity user. Okay, so we'll do that. Transaction and identity. So here is, we create this profile. Now, once again, I guess right now we can just remove this try catch block. Okay, so we did do that. You know what I'm thinking right now? Because I think we are doing things not wrong, but I see here a scenario where we would have some problems. The problem would be, for instance, if something throws an exception, like when creating the user profile, it throws when creating the user profile, so creating the identity will not throw. That's something that we know. Create user profile can throw, but if it throws an exception, so no matter if it's that we cannot validate the domain model when we want to create that, we still roll back the transaction. So I guess no, that we should be good to go with that. Now the only thing here that we could do is, because if this method throws, then we roll back the transaction, and then that exception will be caught here by the other parts, and yeah, the error will be then added here. Okay, so I guess we are fine. So the only thing that we need to do here is, after we create user profile, here we have then to just, if everything's okay till then, await transaction dot commit async, and that would commit everything. So then it would be claims identity, and I guess actually we have refactored this method right now to be fairly nice. So this was the register method. Don't we need to commit somewhere? Yeah, okay, so we commit here. And if during the commit we have an error, that will be caught here in this one. However, okay, good. So I guess that should be okay. Right now, this I wouldn't really be extracting a separate method, because theoretically that's only one line of code. Practically, of course, to actually understand better what happens, we write this on several lines of code, but I guess we are still good here. Now, the only problem I have right now, and we have really extracted a lot of functionality in smaller methods, and here we actually just use this as some kind of an orchestrator. So we first validate that the identity does not exist. If it exists, then we just return the result, which presumably will contain also errors. Then we have this use await using. Okay. Then begin transaction. Method has okay. Begin transaction Async, okay. Yeah, but then that actually changes. And here we can, okay, let's do it like that. Beginning the transaction should actually not be too problematic. Okay, so where would be authorized set permissions who can edit this new user profile, user admins, and so on. I guess these are authorization policies that that would be defined probably. I guess that's a good question, because you define authorization policies theoretically when you are adding authorization as part of adding the services for authorization. But for more complex things, I guess that's the topic that I already was saying that I also still need to think about, because on the one hand that actually belongs to this concept of identity. So I don't know, we might put some, but on the other hand, this should happen in filters. So I tend to say right now that we would most probably put that in the API layer. Because I guess the handler is only an orchestrator. Of course, it should know about the flows of the application itself. But if a user is not authorized to actually perform a certain action, then the execution should not even arrive in this layer where we have the handler. So it should stop right in the controller. So yeah, I guess that one is where we where we'll do that directly on the API layer. And if you want to add roles, for instance, to a certain user, then for that we would have handlers for adding roles to the user. But then how those roles are used then to actually authorize or not a request, that's the concern of the API itself. So most probably I would think about putting it there. I'm thinking how to organize such a thing. I need to manage various users' permissions in the identity core somewhere. Okay, yeah, but if you depending on what are you writing those permissions to the database, and are you using Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity, or are you using Identity Server? Because if you are using Identity Server, that should be probably part of your infrastructure layer actually. So it's a totally separate layer. It's not the application layer and it's not the data access layer. It's the infrastructure layer. So if you use Identity Server, I would put that in a dedicated layer for that. That's Identity Core inside to the DB. Okay, that's a good topic. I guess maybe we should have here something like an infrastructure layer, and that would handle actually all the stuff regarding even here this create identity user async. If we'd had an infrastructure layer that would expose a service that would actually do that, well, that would be actually totally fine. Maybe it would be even be better in, because that's kind of like an infrastructure thingy, I think. Yeah, I guess I'll also have a think about that, and probably we'll do this during some of the next streams here, because I guess you're right. We might even. So your question made me also think that it might be even better to have here an infrastructure layer, and all things regarding identity should be put there, like creating an identity, deleting an identity, updating an identity, adding roles, adding claims, I don't know, whatever needs to be performed in the database in the end should be maybe placed in that layer and not here directly in this application layer. So I guess you are totally correct with that, and that would also solve this problem, like of all the private methods that we have here. My business would not make API operational if I do not provide permissions management system along with it. Oh yeah, that totally makes sense, of course. But to manage the permissions through an API, that's, I don't know, that's a little bit strange. I would rather have some Razor Pages part of the application do that, not the API itself. But yeah, you could even expose that through an API. But in that case, I would probably maybe go for Identity Server 4 that also supports the full OAuth implementation. So yeah, maybe I would go with that. But yeah, I guess we'll talk about this topic in the coming streams, because that's actually a good question that you asked, and I think we can even make this better than we have it right now. Because right now we have refactored this handler quite a little bit, so I'm quite okay with that right now. And I guess after more than 3 hours, I guess I need to take a longer break. Let's maybe, I don't know, just remove these things that we don't need anymore. We don't need the options anymore, and also these ones. Okay. Cool. So guys, I guess that we will call it a day for today. Thank you really very much for tuning in. And once again, as said, if you want to support this, you can use the super chat button, that the super thanks button that we have right below the chat. That would be really highly appreciated. I will commit all this code to the repository that you'll find in the description of this video right after we finish the stream. So you might already have an up-to-date repository right there. And as I always say, that repository is actually a community repository. And if you take a look at that, you'll see that we already have other people that contributed to this project. The core idea is that if you feel that you could learn something by contributing here and working on some issues that you can already find in the repository would help you learn something, then you can just feel free to fork this repository to start work on an issue and then to create a pull request. For instance, right now there is one such, let me show you. There is one such, for instance, this issue right now is in the working, not by me, but by somebody else from the community, and it's still very much work in progress. Also, of course, feel free, if you look at the code and think that there are some other things that would need to be done, feel free to just open yourself an issue. For instance, this issue, as you can see, was not opened by me, but was opened by somebody else. So once again, if you want to get involved here, just do that. It's, I don't know, Sergey, I know you seem to be already more advanced, so probably this will not bring a lot to you. But for the others that might watch here, maybe that working on this could also be a great learning experience. So just do that. And I'm very happy if I see that this kind of like project becomes really a community project to which we or to which there are several people that contribute to. So that would be totally nice. Okay, so this being said, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of you, stay safe, and make sure that you are subscribed here to actually get more into this, or get notified whenever we have new content. And have a great weekend forward. So bye.